mutter under my breath.
I'm going to stare it down.
I have regrets. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So,
funny.
mic check.
Hey, can you guys hear me? This is better than before.
Yeah.
All right.
And mic check. Good.
That'll get closer to you.
Mic check. Good.
Chandra said that she was told not to come.
Was she told not to come?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go see you later. I didn't tell her. Wait, are you joking?
No, she
Oh.
texted.
You're live. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hey.
Yay. Okay, welcome to Writing for Geeks, where we're going to talk a little bit about, well, writing for geeks. And we've got different people up here who create and write for geeks. So we're geeks. We are all creators, and some of us write, some of us, and I want to let everyone introduce themselves. I am the moderator for the panel. My name is Fern the Geek. It is nice to meet you. It's my first panel moderating, not my first panel, but my first panel moderating. So we're going to have probably a good time, I hope. Please don't get up on the table and dance. We're not doing that. But I want to start, I want to start first and let everyone introduce themselves. I'll start. Again, I'm Fern the Geek. I'm a blogger, a blog that I update once every couple of weeks. It is ongoing it's a geek lifestyle blog with a geek lifestyle brand, thisgeeklife.com. And we talk about just like DIYs and home decor, anime, all the things that geeks love in their lives at this big age that we are and want to live that geek lifestyle without feeling like Toys R Us kids. Something like that. Okay, your turn.
Okay, I am Dr. Law. I am actually a real doctor. I'm a PhD in sociology. I am a podcaster. I also teach a course on the sociology of fiction, where I pull in all kinds of science fiction, fantasy things to illustrate sociological properties. I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about all aspects of, film reviews. I go through all my old, comics and talk about, things that like the MCU and the DCU is like doing. And these are the actual issues that they're drawing from and things like that. So excited to be here. And I know you're going to be a great moderator for me.
Aw, thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Nix. I write Alias and Apocalypses, which is a mid-apocalyptic urban romantasy with actual healthy relationship dynamics. I also have Spectral Supper for free via my newsletter, which is about a ghost couple who have an entrepreneurial haunting business and are struggling with work and life balance and need to find a way to have a restorative date when they feed off of the trauma bonds of the living. My book is for free online, and I'm hoping that the followers go up, but other numbers that are important here. DragonCon always does a charity, and this year it is one that is important to all of us for mental health. DragonCon will match up to 1,025 big numbers. They'll match a lot of money, more money than I'm willing to give. So please, if you can, donate so that DragonCon can match and we can pull as much cash out of them as possible so that they stop hiring better authors than me and I can get more time because Jim Butcher is on more than enough. Let's make sure they can't afford him and they get to settle for second best.
Jim Butcher's a good guy, though. I was with him in an elevator yesterday.
He makes it hard. I want him to be like not jacked, not have good hair, and talented at the same time, but he's all of those while also being charming. John has favorites.
All right, my name is David Shearer. I do a lot of things, have a lot of hats. The most pertinent thing I think to this, I'm a game designer. I make multiple games. My wife is USA Today best-selling author, and I do all of their advertising. I teach marketing and brand building, and just all around entrepreneurial stuff. Most of the stuff that I do, you guys probably really care about, but it's so behind the scenes that nobody knows who I am. So it's hard for me to go, I'm this guy. Most people want to hear that I'm a street performer, I do fire spinning, I make games. But really the way I make my money is with marketing.
And I'm Clint Hall. I am a sci-fi fantasy author. I've got 2 books out, Steal Fire from the Gods and Echo Nova. And I actually just signed a contract to publish my upcoming sci-fi trilogy, which releases next year. Thanks. Appreciate that. And then I'm also a podcaster. I'm the host of a podcast called The Experience, Conversations with Creatives. We have on really any kind of creative person that I think is interesting. So because I'm an author, we've had a ton, too many, enough with the authors. We have too many authors. chefs and composers and film editors and tattoo artists and anybody else doing
Mhm.
anything creative that I think is interesting. Always.
Games.
Always.
I'm so excited. Okay, thank you guys. And I want to say first and foremost that this isn't about gaining millions of followers and becoming super popular and famous. I mean, you can aim for that. That's a good goal, I guess. But this is really just about creating and our love of creating and why we create. So I just want to make sure that we know that going in. Also, just a bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, I'm happy to take those questions toward the end. When you're ready, you can come and stand up there. I'm sure you don't want to stand the whole time, but we'll take questions at the end, I promise. So I want to start with some questions about creating geek content, and let's just go down the line until we go off the rails, and then and then we'll just wing it from there. But I'll always bring us back with our questions. So when it comes to creating geek content, what got you started creating the content that you create for geeks? Is it for geeks? First of all, nod your heads, yes, no. Okay, so we're creating for geeks. We've established that. What got you started? And let's just go down the row.
Okay, so the podcast that me and my friends started is called Stuff We Like, Stuff We Hate. And it just grew out of, we would go to lunch somewhere down Buford Highway every week here in Atlanta, and we would have conversations about different geek themed things, like, old comics, old, or TV shows or movies that we were coming out or that we're coming out with, and we had varying like opinions on everything. And so we said, you know what? These conversations are really great. Like, we thought that they were funny, they were insightful. So we were like, why not just turn it into a podcast? Because a lot of other people are probably talking about, similar things, and maybe we'll find an audience. So we started, putting these things out like on YouTube and on Spotify and things like that. So it just kind of came, at least that particular project came about just really organically with us just being friends and talking about things that we like and things that we hate.
I was in undergrad and I was trying to get good clubs that would make me look more interested in academics than I was at the time. I was firmly focused on figuring out the least amount of effort for the highest GPA and the minimal GPA I would need to get by. And I went to the Society of Leadership and Success, and they had a questionnaire you were supposed to fill out to figure out what you wanted to do with your life. And I thought that it skewed pretty heavily towards typical types of success, like doctor, lawyer, stuff like that. And I filled it out, and it became pretty quick, immediately obvious that I should be writing. It was like, well, damn, I came here trying to like burn an hour and a half and read on my phone, but I can't argue with the facts. And so I started trying to write. And there was never really an option for me doing anything else. I might put out a nonfiction book about writing one day, but enough of my personal passions automatically fall into a geekdom that it was the place where I had the most to say, the most that I wanted to say. Even if I wasn't writing here, I still constantly have the thoughts come up in my head that could be channeled to this direction. I'm always thinking of how would the coefficient of friction actually interact with someone who had physically drive super strength. One of my favorite questions recently is to talk through the ethics of different types of cloning with people, and I found a very strong gender difference in it, which is fascinating. I just don't see how I could have been anywhere else.
Nice.
Mine was on accident, kind of. So I was a telecommunications engineer for years. I spent 12 years with one of the largest ISPs in the country, doing all kinds of like stuff from forensic, like technical stuff, to creation of giant phone systems that you put in hospitals and things. And I loved my job until COVID. And when COVID happened, my job went from 6 projects a week, being like a head code, to 6 projects a day. It was like my daily work. And I was complaining about it to my wife, and my wife's a USA best-selling author, and she's like, I make 3 times what you make, you should quit. What do you mean? I'm one of the I'm a high-paid engineer. 6 people in the world do what I do. There's no way. And she showed me spreadsheets, and as an engineer, I can't really argue with spreadsheets. That's not good.
Absolutely.
So I turned my 2 weeks notice the next day, and she was like, you can take over stuff for the company, like the marketing and stuff. So I was like, marketing, I can do that. I did that whenever I was younger. I did a job marketing for the Atlanta Braves, the Hawks, Thrashers, and Falcons. So I could do marketing. And marketing to geeks and marketing to basketball geeks is 2 completely different things. So I went into, not really don't cross-pollinate, but like you have to talk to them different.
I love the Hawks.
Yeah.
Me too.
Woo, sports. So,
We're smart.
we I didn't really know what to do, so I just started like going on podcasts and started like talking about my life. It was amazing to people and doing in-person events and things like that. And now I make games, which is also a fun and half an accident story. So for me, it was that I had a terrible job and amazing life. Her name is Lydia Scherer. She is an author. You can check her out on literally anywhere. Just type in LydiaScherer.com at the end of it. You'll find her.
Yeah, very little about my career is on purpose. So I was always just kind of into comic books as a kid and that sort of thing. I actually came to a lot of this a little bit late, despite being into comic books. I never kind of had that older sibling. I had an older sibling, but she wasn't into this stuff. So I never kind of had that older person to hand me things. I didn't watch Star Wars until I was in college. You know, I didn't encounter a lot of the cultural touchstones of geekdom until a little bit later in life. But I always knew that I would be a writer. Always. Even from a very young age, a lot of it was just simply realizing in school that even if you don't really know the answer, if you're a pretty good writer, you can usually get like at least partial credit just for kind of like just sort of, I see a couple, like I see recognition on faces in the crowd right now. So I think I just always knew that was something that I would be able to do. And when I finally, I was in rock bands all throughout my 20s because I knew that I did not yet have the discipline to sit down and write. And then when I finally did, it just kind of came out that way. I've never really written with an audience in mind, with a specific reader in mind. It's always been for me, it's always been just whatever I thought was kind of cool and whatever I was into. And then sort of when I pulled back and looked at it, I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm writing. I'm writing sci-fi fantasy. The same sort of goes for the podcast. It's simply just conversations that I think are interesting. So it's certainly, that's not necessarily sci-fi fantasy specific. It's just people that I think are fascinating, which honestly tends to be just about everybody who's passionate about something.
Okay. So that leads me to think of another question. What is your favorite fandom or something from a fandom that you've seen this weekend so far?
Okay, I'm gonna go first. Although I just got here because I have young kids and a day job, and I'm actually having PTO days for the year. I'm in IT marketing myself, actually. So, anyways, no, I love people who write fan fiction. Anybody in here write fan fiction?
Oh.
Bless you, because they do it for love of the game. People who do fan fiction do it because they are passionate about a thing and they want to share that passion about those things with other people. And it's so easy for your art and your creativity to be such a pure thing. And I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone. And then it gets kind of messed up by like all the other stuff, by wanting other people to like it, by wanting it to be successful, by wanting to make money with it, which aren't necessarily bad things, but they can be corruptive. Fan fiction is so pure. I've never written fan fiction, but the people who do it's just so pure, and I love that fandom.
Would you write fan fiction?
Would I?
Yeah.
I suppose so. I guess so. I don't know what it would be though.
Huh.
It's never occurred to me. Like I've never been the kind of person to watch a thing and be like, "Here's how I would do that differently." That's just not my deal. I just kind of accept what's given to me.
Okay.
In that regard. So yeah.
Okay.
So I actually had something interesting happen. The Alias and Apocalypses that is out right now. I had a different series that had been my baby for a while when I was working through burnout and trying to get out of a very bad, very big company. And I had to rewrite it, and it was going to be delayed, and I was trying to get something out so I could finally make good on saying that I was going to do stuff. And I needed to take a break. So my girlfriend loves romantasy. And we usually bet that whoever wins a bet gets to pick the next book the other person will read. And even though I won more bets, I was also the only one who was willing to actually put in the time and read the book. She's very ADHD and gets distracted. And so I ended up reading 10, 12, 14 romantasies over the course of 14 months or so. And I'm the exact opposite. I cannot read without having my brain try to work through the problem and say, if I had access to these capabilities, how could I problem solve? Could I see something that I might want to do differently? And so I decided I'm going to just write her a short story where I'm going to write within her favorite genre with her favorite tropes. But it's going to be some of the things that I like in my books that I'm having trouble getting her to read. So one of my favorite fandoms is rationalists or rational. They're slightly different. Rationalists are sort of preachy. Rational is more about having all the characters really be dedicated to their own personal objectives and be as intelligent as they can, so you don't need to suspend disbelief as much. And when I started writing this book for her, I thought it was going to be real fast. And so I dug out my very first novel, and I would call it hot trash, except it died after the second page and it was cold and dead. And so I resurrected that first character and the setting, and I just switched it all. And it was the fastest I've ever written in my life. I got an entire book in about 3 months, because the entire time it felt like I was writing fan fiction in my high school self's book, and I was going through telling him all the stuff he had messed up and hadn't thought of. And one of the things that's great about the rationalist community is if you go in, they are hyper intelligent and have trouble taking stuff on credit. So you can absolutely walk into them and say, is there anyone who knows epidemiology well enough that if you had a communicable vampire disease, how would it spread like this? Or if someone was able to make a vacuum in 2 portals, could you use kinetic bombardment just by having something fall endlessly and then go someplace else? And there will always be someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm a nuclear engineer, I did the math real fast. You're wrong. A much better way to break this power would be this. So in the process, I got to go through and be like, I think a factor of 5 is good. And I could always go to a rationalist nerd and have them be more than happy to tell me how that would or wouldn't work out, or how someone would be smarter in exploiting that capability.
My favorite fandom encounter I had this weekend was on the street on Thursday when I was walking to get my badge. I saw somebody with a Princess Donut from Dungeon Crawler Carl on her shoulder, and I was like, hey, that's a great donut. And she turned and looked at me and thought I was Matt Dillon.
That's funny.
And she like freaked out. Oh, I know I'm not Matt Dillon. I know him. I'm a friend of his. I'm actually going to go see him right now. But I'm a game designer and stuff. And she listened to me for a second talk about my game, and then she immediately went back to telling me about how great Dungeon Crawler Carl is, a book that not only have I read every one of them, I'm friends with the author. So she was unperturbed by the fact that like I absolutely understand and know everything that you probably can know about this book series, and she just wanted to tell me about how great the fandom was. So much that she drew a crowd of people that were like, what book are you talking about?
Oh.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
There was another person that walked by. I was like, oh, I'm a Dungeon Crawler Carl fan too. He had like a lanyard on. Dungeon Crawler Carl. But the Dungeon Crawler Carl fandom and the fans are like so rabid and so like they preach it. They're just so into that, and like I love it. It's great.
Yeah, at least once a month someone knocks on my door and they're like, hey, have you heard about our Lord and Savior Carl?
That's funny. I was gonna say one of the things I do is cosplay photography, actually, and so I ran into I think it was Wednesday. I saw like a really obscure Star Trek. Anybody in here into Star Trek? Very obscure Star Trek Voyager episode where Tom Paris and Captain Janeway get trapped on this planet and they devolve into these lizards and they have sex and they have babies basically that are stuck on this planet. And so what's that? Exactly. Yes. It's arguably the worst episode of Star Trek ever. You know, that's what some people will say. But someone did a cosplay. They had in a backpack, they had these 2 lizards saying, have you seen our mommy? They left us, actually. And so it made me think about actually doing a podcast episode about that particular episode of Star Trek and just how kind of awful and campy and cringe it actually is. But it's almost so good, or almost so bad, it's actually good. And so I was able to have a conversation with the cosplayers and we totally cracked up about just that episode. So that was pretty cool.
Is it the sort of thing where it's better to watch if you have someone who's good at making commentary like Adam West Batman?
Yes, definitely.
Not to be watched alone.
Yes, no, you need to watch it as a community. So maybe I'll do that. Do like a little audio commentary to go along with the episode. Good idea. Thank you.
See, I love this because the next question was, how do you merge your creativity with your fandom? And you all just kind of included that in your answer. Also, where do your ideas come from? Where else do your ideas come from? Besides rationalists, and you photograph fandoms all the time. Do you ever use some of the cosplay that you see in your podcast?
Yes, 100%. We will talk about the different photo shoots that we do, like the creative mashups. That's the one thing about Dragon Con. There's just so much creativity, just in writing, in game designing, in cosplay, just in everything. It's wonderful to see. So sometimes I'll get inspired by seeing a particular cosplay. That every year there's always a costume that just completely blows my mind, and I never expect to see. Like for those of you who read comics, the disco version of the Beyonder was somebody had that on the other day, and I was just like, oh my god, I'd have never thought that I would ever see that. And the Man of Steel, Superman, it was just out there. It's a classic Kryptonian John Byrne cosplay or characterization that no one has ever done before. I've never ever seen that. So that will actually spark me to go and talk about that particular issue of the comic, like on my episodes. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. We were talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I cannot say too quickly. And we have friends who are, like you said, kind of rabid about it. They were going to cosplay it. And she every week she's like, did you read it? And I'm like, I haven't gotten a chance. I think, yes, I've been told. But when I saw your game, really, you're going to, this is what we're doing?
I was gonna give it a shot to see if I could get it.
Have you not read it? Okay, everybody laugh. I do that to my husband. But when I saw your game, I thought of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I cannot say that. Was this game influenced by the cat in that?
No, so my wife
No?
writes a book with a magical talking cat in it. So
Okay.
Sir Alan Kipling, Magical Talking Cat Extraordinaire.
Yep.
He has his own book.
I need my
about
book.
him called Cat Magic. It's Cat Magic Developed. In
Oh.
which he is to be left at home because somebody that Lily and Sebastian, who are the main characters, are going on an adventure with Richard the cats. And Sir Edgar Allan Kipling, Magical Talking Cat Extraordinaire, is not a cat you just leave at home. So he appoints himself to be the guardian of the magical library while they're gone. So it's a book from his point of view of all the shenanigans he got up to that he was in charge of.
Okay. All right.
And
I love it.
It's a gamified version of that.
Got it. So, Clint, can we talk about your fire from the gods? Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm really curious how you tapped into and what fandom you perhaps may have tapped into for that. It's very interesting to me.
Again, it wasn't on purpose. A minute ago, you asked where your ideas come from.
Mhm.
Sometimes my ideas come out of thin air, and sometimes they come from elbow grease. Steelfire from the Gods came out of thin air. So again, as I mentioned, I write for IT marketing. How many authors in here, by the way? How many? Okay, some people who will actually care about this. So I'll kind of. Okay, so no, I write about AI and how people are using it all across the world. And I've been doing this for years, by the way. And I was working on this piece about these vineyard farmers who were using AI technology. It's not really AI. That's a whole other thing. AI technology to improve crop yield, right? So they were measuring rainfall and topography and soil quality to do smarter irrigation strategies, right, to improve their crop yield, which kind of sounds boring until you start writing about it and you actually realize it's actually kind of interesting. And it occurred to me that if there was ever, I was driving home, just like picking up lunch one day, and I was driving home one day, and it occurred to me that if there was ever anything to elemental magic, the combination of different, like bubble, toil and trouble, and throwing I have nuked the cauldron, right? And if there's ever anything into combining all those factors, right? Because I have new, well, that's chemical compounds. The boiling cauldron is the application of heat energy, and even bubble, toil and trouble, that's sound vibrations. If there was ever actually anything to that, AI is going to figure it out, because it would have to be super precise, right? And chances are, if humans had gotten it right, it was probably a fluke. They probably got it right on accident. And I'm driving home picking up lunch, and I had this line in my head, which was, the human alliance knew it was over when the robots started doing magic.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me laugh. And then I got home and I called my wife, and it made her laugh too. And that was all I had. I knew nothing else. I didn't know what the characters were. I didn't know what the story was. I didn't know about the world. I didn't know anything. But I had that. I had AI figuring out magic. So that was all I needed, though, right? Because all you need is that one teeny, like Mr. Rogers will say, you just need one little seed in the garden of your mind, right? And then you pour some water on it. For me, this is what pouring water on it looks like. It's me sitting there writing. To me, thinking is an action verb. You say, well, how would AI learn magic? Okay, you work on that a little bit. And the seed starts to grow, and it starts to grow. And before you know it, you've got a whole garden that is a story, right? That idea appeared out of thin air. My other one, Echo Nova, was me feeling like I want to write another book. I don't know, I think time travel, and just grinding it out, banging my head sort of against my notebook until something came to me, and then finally it eventually did. So it's never the same way twice.
Okay.
So something,
Jeffrey?
this is just, I might have to talk to you guys about it afterwards, but I mentioned that some of my ideas come from seeing how other people execute a premise. And one of my very favorite questions to ask geeks, particularly people who create content, is, has someone ever done something so right that you consider it case closed and you don't need to go back? It's like, has anyone ever done a podcast episode where you listen and you're like, yep, it's done. My voice isn't needed.
Don't
here.
need
They did
it.
it correctly. I've read books by like Sarah Lynn where it's like modern take on cultivation magic that talked about systemic inequality. Never need to touch it. It's done. It's been done correctly.
Yeah.
So I will oftentimes lean into indie published books that are really raw or that are being put out online, because if you read someone who is amazing at their craft, you get caught up. You don't know what's happening. You're just along for the ride. We mentioned Matt Dinneman, Jim Butcher, Pierce Brown.
Man.
I don't read those books and think about myself as a writer. I don't read those books and think. I forget to eat and drink and have to make sure that my skin still has fluid in it so that I survive. But reading stuff that is not done by the masters of the craft is one of the best ways to get ideas, because I will absolutely go through and be like, I know slightly more about statistics than you, and that's not actually how that would work. Or I have a friend who's intelligent enough about AI to point out, you're not going to use magic against them unless it requires a soul. And then you have a very interesting Truman problem. I know just enough about large language models that the language of magic would be no problem. But yeah, I like listening to things that aren't perfectly done, and that will spark creativity.
So it sounds like you don't really follow trends in writing or in what's going on in the geek world. Yes, no? Am I assuming?
My TBR is so large that any part of the geekdoms I'm in, I'm usually trailing pretty significantly behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, I tend to believe that when you write or create for a singular person in mind, it is a safer bet that a person you know has someone very similar to them out there, and that you will have an audience.
That's true.
Kevin Kelly has something called 1,000 True Fans, where he goes through a very simple math equation. Depending on your price and your audience, if you have X amount of true fans will just buy anything you put out. Like Exploding Kittens, if they put out a game, I would probably get it. I know that the kids in my life would play it. I don't need to look twice. So if you have a true fan who will just buy stuff, oftentimes you only need about 1,000 of them to make a very successful career. And one of the magics of the internet is you can get in touch of almost 1,000 types of anyone. Anything niche, there's 1,000 people who will be very into it. So rather than trying to make up an imaginary fan of a genre and pretend like who they are, I just try to find a real person who I know and I'll create for them. If I try to chase the trends, I'm writing to a simulacrum, which is a simulation of something that never existed, and there's no bet that there's going to be a community of those people. But I know that there are dozens of people who are just like me.
That's brilliant.
So we can all agree with that. We're not really following trends when we write. Okay, so are we really writing for fandoms then if we're not following trends?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How? I mean,
Fandom doesn't have to be a trend.
Okay.
Like Star Trek has had a massive fandom forever, and when I was a kid, that wasn't trendy. They still have fans.
mm-hmm.
And, well, I'm going to get a little pie in the sky here. See, I'll grab my ankles and bring you back down. So much of this stuff, though, it's, I mean, yeah, like we like vampires and spaceships and dragons, but what we really like is the way this stuff makes us feel. You know what I mean?
There it is.
And I think that's the universal part of it. Like, I think that's why we love these stories. So we're writing the fandoms not to give them something they've already had, but to give them something new that we still think will resonate with them. You know, like this book is magic robots, but it's not really about magic robots. It's about a guy going through a crisis of faith. Because I was going through a crisis of faith. And a lot of people can relate to things like that.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people are like, man, this doesn't make any sense. That's like what these stories are really about, those kind of things. And I think that when people are so passionate about it is because they came across something that resonated with them. And like, yeah, y'all, I like robots too. Like, it's super cool and it's fun to dress up and do that kind of thing. but I think that it's the wonder, it's the hope, it's the inspiration. I think that that's what we're really creating for.
The other thing is the lead time for us putting out the product is so long.
That's the
Yep.
That if I'm say I'm writing a novel right now, or the example I always give is The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is huge for a short period of time. And if you're writing a zombie apocalypse novel because The Walking Dead was huge, by the time you got the novel out, it was already the season that just started to make everything fall apart. So just like if you were trying to write Game of Thrones type stuff, by the time you got the novel out, it was like season 9, and it just all went to crap. So if you try to follow trends and don't try to be a trailblazer or a trendsetter, then you're constantly going to be the teeny version of whatever it is you're trying to be, and you're never going to be the person you really could be.
I'm sorry, I've talked way too much.
I
No, you're fine.
was just gonna say, as a podcaster, a lot of times with the stuff we like and stuff we hate, podcasts, we're reacting to things as they're coming out. So we don't necessarily have a lead time. We're like, just kind of like bam, bam, bam. We're maybe like a week or two or a few days. But I do think that, still with that, we do find people who will listen to us and they'll write in the comments, we feel exactly like you do about X, Y, Z. So we kind of have found our audience, in many ways with that, with the content that we're putting out. Not necessarily that we're chasing, trends or anything like that. And that's one rule that we have on our podcast, is that you have to be authentic, that we're not really pandering, to one side or the other. And we've gotten into arguments with each other, like on our podcast, just about, differing points of view on a different topic, which is fine. But at the same time, we've had people that have commented, on our podcast that said that they took one side or the other, but they appreciated the ability to have like a reasonable debate, with things as well.
I would also say, and I'm about to say something that's putting me at serious danger, considering the topics you actually teach about. I've always had a really hard time understanding the concept of target marketing. And branding, I could have a very poor understanding of, like, use the same polar bear logo everywhere. People will remember. But I remember Travis Baldry said something about picking your target audience and matching your advertising to it, where he just said, imagine coming up to a restaurant and it's very, very strongly decorated with sombreros, the Mexican flag, you have a mariachi band playing, and you walk inside and it sells sushi. How upset are you going to be? And so
I wanted, that's what I wanted. That's the food I wanted. What are you saying?
Now, if we talk about sushi inside burritos, we get into all sorts of weird areas. But while I do not think it is terribly productive to chase trends unless you are on the very cutting edge, I definitely think you can recognize the market you are writing to.
Sure.
And oftentimes, if you identify, so for me, if I know the person I'm going to write to, I don't usually think I want a female audience of X and Y age because I'm not selling beauty products. But I can absolutely say, when I chose to write this book, I had just read 12 cultivation novels and I was really pissed off that no one had done X or Y. And so I can then figure out, like, when I write to this audience, I'm going to try to draw attention from people who have probably read 6 or 7 cultivation novels. They're likely going to be in this group. And I'm still writing to that audience. And oftentimes that gives me freedom to say, like, I don't particularly like putting pop culture references in my books. I don't think they're evergreen. If I make a really great joke about Party Rock Anthem, there's going to be a relatively short shelf life for people to understand what that reference is. But yeah, but if I'm writing to people who are aware of the classics and are having a reaction to, say, Beware of Chicken, which is a cultivation novel where someone's reincarnated in another world, gets punched by a senior disciple and says, "This is trash, I'm going to go be a farmer." I can reference that and I can make jokes to that. I know that audience well enough that I can write to them and they will respond. And that has a slightly higher shelf life because that will be a classic in the genre. And you might get caught up in remakes and redos, but it's still safe to comment on. So yeah, don't chase trends, but you can understand your audience.
There's a complete difference. The targeted marketing is what I do. That's like my whole thing. There's a huge difference between chasing trends and chasing an audience.
Right.
If you are writing a book one of the first things you have to do before you write a single word, if your goal is to make money, you have to find out who you're writing for and make sure that they exist. Because there are some topics that there's just no market for, and it's pretty rare that you find a topic that most people are passionate about writing for that there's no market for, but they do exist. So study your market, study who you want to write for. Picking an individual specifically. I've never heard anyone say it like that, but that is a fantastic way to do it. And just if you're trying to write to make money, you have to pick your goal when you go into things. First thing I tell people whenever I do marketing with them is pick your goal. What do you want to do? Do you want to make money, or do you just want your name on a book? If you just want your name on a book, write whatever you want. It does not matter. If you have the goal of making money, you have to take into consideration and your target audience.
I was really worried about that when I started, when I decided that I was going to leave my job to do creating full time. I was worried about the trends, and with blogging and lifestyle blogging in particular, which a lot of people will say blogging is dead, but it's not. With lifestyle blogging in particular, you see most lifestyle bloggers chasing trends. What is trending right now? What's everyone wearing? What's everyone watching? What is the makeup I guess everyone's using? And I had that discussion with my husband, and I think he pointed out to me that you are in a special kind of niche where you're talking about the geek lifestyle. And with us, those of us who are here at this convention and who love going to conventions and love being geeks, we don't have anything that trends. We love what we love when we love it. Someone's always going to start watching One Piece tomorrow, right? Someone's always going to get into Star Trek tomorrow, maybe just yesterday. And then they're going to be excited about those first few episodes. And then someone's going to say, oh yeah, I've seen that. Just wait, And so I think that you have to kind of balance, like you're saying, balance who your audience is and who you're writing for. But don't be so caught up with trends that you lose yourself. And I think that's really important. You start to lose yourself if all you're worried about is trends. What are you doing this for? Who do you do this for?
Well, I think the way that you said it, and I wrote it down because it was so well said, recognize the market you are writing to, because it occurs to me that you can still start from a very authentic place and then take that approach, right? So for example, and this is just me talking, if all I get to do for the rest of my life is put out books that I think are cool, and I keep the day job that I have now and my time with my kids and wife and that is A-okay with me. Totally fine if I never become a full-time fiction writer. But that is a choice that I have made, right? That does not mean, though, that I cannot, once I understand the types of stories I am writing, that I cannot think about the market that those books belong to and still make wise marketing decisions based on that, right? I think that is I've never heard somebody say, and that was so well articulated.
It was.
When you pick your goal, I talk to people and I tell them to pick your goal. That's not a permanent decision. Sure. So that's a right now decision. Yeah. You can pivot, you can rebrand, you can write something else. As long as you are breathing, you can write. As long as you're writing, you're accomplishing things, you can move forward and you can change. So don't worry about going, I have to make this decision. It has to be a decision I'm going to make for the rest of my life. You can write your first book and have it be like that book you really wanted to write and it never go anywhere. But you did that. You got that book out. That book is that will, after you write other books and you start to get fans, that book in your backlog will still be valuable to you because people will still read it because they like your writing.
So I think I like the direction we're going in, and I want to talk a little bit about marketing. I am terrible at marketing myself. And I think marketing and community are and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they go hand in hand. So how do you build a community, and then how do you market to that community with the interest of your writing and what you're trying to give to your community?
It seems like a question tailored towards me. Do you want to go first?
Yes. I mean, it wasn't, but it's for everyone. But I'm looking at you because you're looking at me.
Can I just point out that it's very interesting that for the first time, I'm not the one standing out for being bald on a panel. I was about to say the only one with hair is about to speak. Look,
I was just thinking that.
Help.
Moderators don't count. You're the benign guardian spirit.
I'm coming for you after this panel.
All right, so my biggest rule on building an audience, building a market, building a community is an 80-20 rule. give to the community 80% of the time. So 80% of the time, you're sending out newsletters that say things like, "Hey, I met this guy at this convention. He's got a book for free. He's a great guy. Check out his book." You're sending pictures of your cats. You're doing all these things where you're giving to the community, and then that 20% of the time, you're asking for something from the community. Whether that ask is going to be join my newsletter or if it's going to be to buy my book. So what I do a lot is I write guides on how to do things. We do all our shipping from home. So I'm in communities like book communities where it's entrepreneurial authors, and I'm going, "Hey, this is how I use Uline to get packages and use my post office to get books picked up from my house. Here's the simple steps you can go through to sell books out of your basement and make money with it." And then in that community, I'm known for being the guy to ask questions to about shipping and stuff. But they all know that I'm a game designer as well. And every now and then I'm like, "Hey, I got a Kickstarter that's coming up. Can you guys please share my Kickstarter with my fans and stuff?" So, but because they know me as that guy, that 80% of the time is giving stuff. And giving stuff doesn't have to mean it's coming out of your pocket. One of the things I do to give things is every time I go to a convention, on Saturdays we have an author dinner where I get all of the authors that are in the vendor hall. I get them all together and I let them know starting Friday. I go, "Hey, we're doing this thing on Saturday. We're going to go to a restaurant where we're going to sit down. We're going to talk shop and talk about conventions that we do and just get to know each other and have a good time." And the community that we have gathered because of that is now massive. Every convention we have, with the exception of DragonCon. DragonCon's a bit too big. We get all of the authors together. It's way too big. But we still have that small community that we gather from other conventions that we do things with. But that community that I built from that has been one of my biggest tools in my arsenal, because all those people are really good with AI stuff or whatever, really good with things that I don't know and I don't know how to do. And I go, "Hey, you did a Kickstarter the other day on this thing. How did you do that? How did you market it or whatever?" And that's how I got introduced to high up people in Kickstarter. That's how I got introduced to a lot of people that I now are in my toolkit for how to do stuff. So, and I know that's not the answer to the question that everybody else is going to answer in that space for everybody else and how to build your fan base and stuff. But building your community is much more than building your fans. It's building your support network as well.
Okay.
I'm going to make a sandwich so that people will forget me between the marketer and the sociologist when I talk about communities. So let's see if we can't fade in the background real fast. I'm still in the early beta tests because I have launched a new story with a new pen name. A couple of the rules I have for myself is it's sort of like kids. People will do as you do, not as you say. I am not willing to start any communities like a subreddit or a Discord unless I'm ready to moderate them, because the type of community you have will impact what people want to stay around and teach the next generation. So I think part of it is also comes from Tim Ferriss was talking about having a massive online following. And he said every so often he puts out something a bit polarizing because he doesn't want to get mail from people who are going to hate him for things that he cares about. So he's like, "Yeah, every once in a while, I'll put out a New Yorker cartoon that involves a woman in a bikini. If that offends people and they stop following me, that's only going to make my life a lot easier." And so one of the things that I think about in my writing is I like supporting LGBTQ plus causes. So I put that in there. I'm hoping that will scare off people who I don't want in my community. And then I've done a couple of other small things. I don't have a terrible amount of comments, but when something is addressed to me as an author, I do try to respond with overwhelming kindness, both as a punitive measure, because nothing makes people who are being asses feel worse than someone being incredibly kind and asking "What exactly were you thinking? I think I know your issue. I want to address it and make you feel better," and also to set the tone. And then the only other trick that I've tried so far, Robin Sullivan was talking to me, and she said that a big part of what people will get is the story of you making something. So why did you make something, not just what is it? So when I introduced the book I wrote, even on the description I have online, I mentioned this is a gift from my partner. Target audience is her. I will accept feedback, but it's going to make her happy. And so one of the things I put at the end as a little experiment was, so what I'm really asking you guys is to give me money. But if you don't give me money, please give me a compliment. I don't care what it's about. Tell me that my shoes are probably very well cleaned. Tell me that I have an immaculately symmetrical beard, because she might find these comments and I really need some people to wingman for me. And I would say for the first 2 months, I had a disproportional amount of people just commenting to say, like, this author very clearly makes excellent charcuterie boards and has the healthy bicuspids of a bison young on the plane. I'm like, wow.
Okay.
It makes no damn sense to me, but that was one of the
That's-
best sources of community I could have. I worked really hard to shine a light on that and encourage other people to do it, because that's the tenor I want to perpetuate.
Even good engagement is still good engagement.
Mhm. So we have about 15 minutes. If you have questions, please come up to the mic and we'll try to get as many as we can. I don't want to cut short the building community. So Dr. Law, do you have anything else to say real quick about building communities?
Yeah, I would say just for us, like we've done a lot of like targeted marketing through like digital platforms, be it Instagram, be it YouTube, be it, whatever platform we were on, just picking key demographics, demographics like ourselves, middle-aged kind of guys, if you will. And that seems to have been really successful. We actually have recorded the podcast live here at DragonCon before, and that brought, people, and we let them kind of ask questions, and it was a very interactive, sort of thing. So that was a way of building community. We started off kind of with our friends who were into similar, things, but it's kind of like grown. We had a few people who were like in Europe that we didn't even know were listening to us, and they were leaving like comments like in, like German that we had to have translated because, none of us speak German. But I think that there's a very organic way to grow your audience through, just, I guess, paid promotion and just natural algorithms. Oh, the hashtag thing is key, at least in, in what I do, is very, key and very central to your marketing efforts and building your community, but also making sure that you do engage people and being nice, being kind, because, the internet can be such a hateful place at times, and nurturing and being affirming of, the people who make comments on your stuff, at least when they're nice anyway.
Also, real fast, just a yay or nay if anyone on this panel disagrees with me. But like, I checked out your blog and your articles were good. And yeah.
Oh, thank
I feel
you.
like the best marketing you can do is to make something good.
How about that?
Does
Mhm.
anyone disagree with me?
No, 100% no.
You have to have a good product for you to be anything.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's very kind. Question. Hello.
So my question is, if I wanted to post something like I myself write review essays and lists related to video games, like on the list I tell what I like and dislike about the game, and then I also put in like improvements. So if I was to post something like that, would you say like Facebook or Reddit would be a good place to start? Or?
It's wherever you already are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a Reddit poster, post on Reddit. If you're an Instagram poster, post on Instagram. If you post on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, you are going to have the most success on whatever platform you use. Don't force yourself to use Pinterest. Don't force yourself to use a platform you don't like to use, unless you found a community there that you would like to get into. And at that point, you're going to start using the platform. You're going to start being on that platform. So it's whatever platform you currently use, start there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Does everybody agree? Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Agree.
100%.
100%.
Hey, sir, my name's David also, so I figured we might get along.
Oh.
Before we started this awesome. So, it was mentioned earlier on the panel that you had 1,000 loyal followers. That's really all you needed as a base. And if those loyal followers follow you for everything, you're good to go. Do you believe that that translated to the building the board game side of the world, or did you have to rebuild a gaming audience as well? Or did those people follow you and there was sort of a cross-pollination back and forth?
So my wife is a USA Today best-selling author with 70,000 followers. What I did with my game is I made my game based on her thing, so I had a built-in audience. But even then, I had to prove who I was, and I had to I couldn't just go, "Hi, this is based on Lydia's books. Please buy it." And people buy it. I actually had to make a good product, because if I just did a terrible game scheme with her product, people would buy it once and then I would go out of business. I wouldn't be able to sell anything because you would know I was a fraud. So I did have to work really hard on that, but I cheated. I targeted an audience I knew was really good and really rabid. I don't know if that actually fully answers your question, but yeah.
All right, that was perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Also, a quick point of clarification, that is a general formula and it varies based on how often you release products and the cost of the products. 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. So for instance, if he only sold 10 of his games a year, but each of them was, let's call it $25,000, he could probably still make a great living if he had 90 True Fans. And if he did that twice a year, he could get by with 45.
But when the people up here were talking about books and games, like small games, this is a $25 game, this is 45. Books are like between 6 and 18-ish. Those are small products. Selling 1,000 of those, that's really good philosophy. It's really good numbers for small products.
It feels like a good benchmark, but it's going to depend on what you're working with. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have an awesome cosplay and it has been distracting me in a very good way.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, this mic is really high. I'm scared to make it loud.
We can hear you.
And I'll restate your question.
Okay. I have been having the problem recently of I've been writing something that I wrote the first several chapters so fast and so effortlessly, and now it's been like a year without me adding on to it, and I'm starting to get worried. When you hit a wall, how do you handle that? Like, if you lose your steam?
I think I'll let somebody else go first and answer this.
Okay.
I-
Is it like a specific scene that you're having a problem with?
Not really. It's just, it's not flowing out of me anymore. I still am inspired about it. It's just, it's
So you're trying to, your question is, how do I get my mojo back?
yeah.
So my answer is do something.
Do something
for a
else.
little while.
Mhm.
So what I always recommend to authors, when they're starting out and stuff, is to write short stories, write a short story a month. So whenever you start faltering on your main thing, you can switch over to your short story writing. And then at the end of the year, if you write 12 short stories a year, so a short story a month, you have a short story collection.
Mhm.
It's really hard to write 12 terrible short stories in a row. You gotta be really good at writing terrible things to write 12 terrible short stories in a row. So that's advice I give to people, like, how do you get your mojo back?
Mhm.
And how do you make product while picking up product?
Two things. Okay, one, it's okay if your first draft is terrible. Matter of fact, your first draft is supposed to be terrible. So if it's any kind of perfectionism or wanting something to be really, really good that's stopping you, and for me, literally saying out loud, it's okay that this is bad, this is supposed to be bad. So like sometimes you just have to write. And Stephen Pressfield talks about this, like just write and write. The muse favors the working stiff. You know, he says you don't just kind of walk around sort of waiting to be hit by inspiration. You sit down, you type, you type, you type. And then sometimes the muse automatically shows up. And that's amazing. It's like magic, right? So it takes a lot of self-awareness, right? You have to decide, do I need to take a break? Do I need to do something else? Or do I need to just sit down and just go until I get the mojo back through that way? That's something you have to decide for yourself. One thing I want to add, if you find yourself getting stuck on one part, just can't figure this scene out, skip it. It is easier to conquer an enemy that you've got surrounded, right? So you come at it and then you get stuck here, just skip that scene if you know what's happening. Then you've got it surrounded, you can come back later and you can fix that button.
You have also stepped on a landmine. This is one of my favorite topics. My day job is as an industrial organizational psychologist, which has a lot of weird stuff associated with it. But I picked that degree because they do studies on motivation, learning, burnout, creativity and innovation, and all sorts of stuff. One thing that is useful is if you can do something for 13 minutes, write 13 minutes of words.
Yeah.
When you mess up, you'll see what words to write. Another one that I talk about all the time, and it's probably going to be common enough that someone's just going to make me a shirt, so I stopped talking about it, is the difference between eustress and distress. Distress is negative, harmful stress that comes from working to avoid something. It will work in the short term, it will give you mediocre results, and it can literally have perceptible results on your heart health and other things. Eustress is pushing yourself hard to achieve something you're excited about. It will make you overachieve. It will stop you from burning out. It will make you feel more fulfilled and just have a variety of better things. So one of the other things is like, if you are If you're not writing it and you feel bad, that will probably make you not want to write it because you're just trying to avoid the feeling of being bad. If you're still motivated and you feel like it, write it. If it's not your job, don't write it. Who cares? This is about you being happy. So if the purpose of the writing is to be happy, maybe the goal isn't figure out how to sit down and write it, but figuring out ways to sit down and be happy about writing it. Even if it's just adding a process of like, I'm going to sit in front of my computer for 10 minutes. I'm going to imagine the way that only my character could mess this up. And when I'm excited, I'm going to try to put it down. And then you are chasing the eustress and you're much more likely to have a sustained habit.
Thank you. We just have a few minutes, and I'm so sorry. I don't think we're gonna be able to get to the rest of the questions. Please come up and talk to us at the end. I want to give everyone here a chance to tell us where. I know I would too. This is thank you guys so much. Please tell me again. Tell everyone your name, where we can find you, and or your next panel. If you don't know your next panel, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm Clint Hall, ClintHall.com, Instagram at Clint Hall. Tomorrow night, for those of y'all who are worried about social media, we're doing a panel at 8:30 called it's on this track. I don't know if it's this room or the other room. Engage, don't just count. It's about building connections on social media. There's just the value of social media, even when you have a small following. And then on 1 o'clock on Sunday, we're doing a panel called Be a Podcast Guest Pro. It's how to get booked on podcasts and how to be a good guest to get invited back.
Great. My name is David Scherer. You can find me at chenowethgames.com. It's CHENOWETH games.com. My next panel is going to be on cozy games at 4 p.m. in Augusta 1 and 2 in Weston.
You can just look me up on the app. It'll tell you my stuff. I'm also going to be on Podcast Pro. In the meantime, you will probably see me following this young gentleman around with a bottle of water, asking him if he needs anything and how many open slots he has for his podcast.
Still booking season 6.
Oh, God.
Heck yeah. Through a fluke of timing, my book comes out 2 chapters a week, completely for free, and then 10 chapters ahead of that is on Patreon. But the first book of the mid-apocalyptic romantasy, the very last chapter, is going to come out on Monday. And a week from today, the epilogue will be out. You can also get free short story on my website. If you want to, come up here. I have a QR code on this and on the back so that you can start reading right this very minute.
Okay. I am Dr. Law, aka Lou Willis, and you can find me at Dr. Law's Photo Lab on Instagram and on Facebook, as well as the Stuff We Like, Stuff We Hate podcast. And my next panel is going to be tomorrow on the Star Wars track, talking about 20 years of Revenge of the Sith. And if you're around on Monday, we are going to have a really innovative panel talking about why the Empire failed, actually. So those are my next panels.
Sweet. I know,
right?
I'm Fern the Geek. I am a blogger. I have no more panels, and I'm a free agent for the rest of the convention. So if you find me, I have grab bags for you. Also, cards with this QR code here will give you information about this panel. So I will update it for a lot of the really cool things that you guys said. Thank you so much. And you can go to this page and review the panel, get a printable of tips and tricks for writing and other things like that.
I have a free print and play game that I printed a whole bunch of.
Yes.
And I haven't got one come up here and I'll give you one right now.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.